Hey, what is up, guys? Today we're going to be debating who would win, Nightwing or the Red Hood. I figure since we're all stuck at home here, we might as well just have an open discussion and debate who would win. Obviously, all of us on this channel love superheroes fighting, so let's talk about it. Let's see who we think would win, and I want you guys to post comments below on what I'm saying to let me know if you agree or disagree. Also, before we get into that, I just want to give a big thank you and shout out to who is sponsoring this video, which is Opinion Outpost. The link is in the top of the description. If you want to know what they do, they are a great service for allowing you to make money, which is wonderful, especially in the times right now because we're all stuck at home. So you just go on there and you can answer some surveys, you can answer questions, do all this kind of stuff. You can do it when you're watching Netflix or doing anything, playing video. Well, it can be hard when you're playing video games, but pretty much anything, like eating, you can just go on there and you can make money. And it all adds up. The more you do it, the more it accumulates. I've been on there, tried that, had a good relationship with them. And that's why I was kind of keen to hopping on doing this, because I know making money is a great thing. So definitely click on the link below. Big thanks to Opinion Outpost. Check them out. All right, let's get into the debate and open discussion of who do we think would win, Nightwing or Red Hood. Right off the bat, I would say, gosh, it's tough because Red Hood has evolved so much. As a character, Red Hood has progressed so much more. You know, obviously he was dead for quite a while there, and then was kind of brought back in Hush, and then of course was brought back mainly in Judd's run, where the Red Hood fully returned, even though he was supposed to return in Hush, but that's a whole other story, and I really would have preferred him that he did return in there. And then he came back as, he came back as a bad guy, and then he was Batman for a little bit, for Battle for the Cowl, and then they revamped everything under the New 52, and then he kind of found his footing a little more, donned the bat symbol, and he became working with Arsenal and Starfire, and he's really had a lot of progression, and we've learned more about him. So I think he's probably been a more interesting character because of lately. Dick Grayson was Rick, where he forgot his memory, and then he was Agent Grayson. Honestly, I really think that DC's having a hard time finding footing for Nightwing. I don't know why. He's such a great character. He's one of my favorite characters. I know he's many of your guys' favorite characters. I don't know why they've really kind of struggled with him. Obviously, Chuck Dixon's run is my favorite Nightwing run. It's the definitive Nightwing run, obviously. I also thought Devin Grayson back in the early 2000s on her Gotham Knights run handled him pretty well. I think her whole run actually is pretty good in general. If you haven't had a chance to read it, it is not fully collected. I would definitely go back and check it out. So, kind of going over just the brief, most recent comic book history, let's look at what Red Hood has. Now, Red Hood was, when he was brought back after being trained by Batman, because he was just a street thug who was stealing Batman's tire on the Batmobile, but he was trained with Batman, who obviously is the greatest fighter in the DC world. I know some of you are going to say Shiva or Kane or Black Canary or Wildcat, but just for sheer examples and for sheer number of wins, it has to go to Batman, because he is the greatest strategist in the DC universe and probably in all comics. So being taught by Batman is really quite a big thing. Now, Dick Grayson also has this too, but we'll get back to that in a second here. The one thing that Red Hood has over Dick Grayson is that he was trained by the League of Assassins, or League of Shadows if you're going off the Nolan universe, but which Red Hood did not exist in there, but just for clarification. But anyway, so he was trained by the League of Assassins, and which is a far more deadly, more lethal, aggressive, fighting style. And when you're fighting aggressively, it helps you win more. Like in sports, the minute that you stop playing to win, you're playing to lose. Playing defense is not always the best. And I feel like when Nightwing fights, he's very defensive because he doesn't want to kill anyone. So Red Hood also has more aggressive weapons, guns. He has a face shell covering his, face, which is great for when you're battling. And, their suits are about the same tactical. They're about the same in terms of tactical. So, I would say that that's what Red Hood has over Nightwing. Now, what Nightwing has over Red Hood is that Nightwing is, I think, more of just a born athlete. he was in a circus, which means he started his training younger, which means that his body has evolved to be a more, just a machine, like, basically more of an athlete. He was trained by Batman much longer than Red Hood was. He is not emotional or driven. I mean, he's emotional a little bit, but he's not emotionally driven the way that Red Hood is, where he starts to see red, no pun intended, and kind of lose his way. But at the same time, sometimes seeing red in a fight can also help you power through in a fight. And that is where Red Hood is good. He'll go right for the win, right for the kill, where Dick Grayson will kind of pull back and he's not really sure. And he doesn't, he wants to instill like a moral or a message beforehand. Although we have seen a few times when Dick Grayson did let loose and he was a badass. So I would say as far as physically, if you just stripped him down to just their boxers and you had Jason Todd and Dick Grayson go at it, I think Dick Grayson would wipe the floor with him. I think Red Hood has more weapons and a little more interesting gadgetry. And I think it's hard to say who's a better strategist, because that's like, it's not saying who's smarter, because, you can look at Tony Stark and Bruce Wayne. Who's smarter between the two? Well, Tony Stark has a much more scientific, brilliant mind than Bruce Wayne does. But Bruce Wayne is a much better strategist. Like if they were to play chess, Bruce Wayne would destroy him. But if we needed someone to, figure out time travel in 2 minutes or whatever from this scene to the next scene, then I guess Tony Stark is the way to go. So it just depends. And in that case, I'd say Dick Grayson and Red Hood are about the same. But what do you guys think on as far as who's a better strategist? I mean, maybe I personally would give the edge to Red Hood in that if you had to. Now, if you say who's a better detective, that of course would be Tim Drake. Tim Drake is the better detective, but that's not who we're talking about. Also, I think both of them would beat Tim Drake just because he's just still young or younger, depending on what continuity you're going through, because I know they're always rebooting them. So, and ultimately, if you just want to come right down to it, Dick Grayson and Red Hood have fought in the comic books 2, if not 3 times. And I believe that Dick Grayson has won all of those. So that pretty much just wraps it up right there. Dick Grayson, I would say, is the victor. He is the winner. And he is obviously next in line for the cowl, which would definitely make him a better fighter than Red Hood. Now, could Nightwing teamed up with Red Hood beat Batman? No. Batman's in a whole nother level. To me, Batman's pro athlete, and Dick Grayson and Jason Todd are still college. They're not quite there. So, anyways, once again, big thanks to Opinion Outpost for sponsoring this video. If you guys were looking to make a little extra money, especially in these times when we're all stuck at home, going online and taking surveys and answering questions, hey, it's a great way, and that money accumulates and piles up. So definitely click the link below and make some money. But let me know who you think would win. Cite comic references, why you think, and then let's go from there. This is an open discussion, guys. There is no right or wrong answer. They're fictional characters. When you start talking about like certain things, like sports athletes, who is better, you can actually look at real stats and real victories. So that's a little different. But here, the fun thing about superheroes is that there is no right or wrong answer. There's a probability. I would say maybe like if Nightwing and Jason Todd fought 10 times, I would say it'd probably go 6 for Nightwing, 4 for Red Hood, or maybe 7 for Nightwing, 3 for Red Hood. But you never know. I mean, certain teams get upset all the time. You think this team's gonna win, and then boom, they get upset. So it just depends. And it's ultimately what you guys want to see, because the writers at all these companies want to appease you guys, because then they make more money. But post comments below and let me know who you think would win and who we should debate next.